The Stardust Diner exists outside of time, outside of Las Vegas proper, a small white building on the empty highway surrounded by darkness and snow. 3:22 in the morning. The November blizzard screams against the windows with the sound of something alive and furious, wind that cuts like a blade wrapped in ice. The neon signs flicker red and blue, casting the checkered black and white floor in an alternating glow that makes everything look underwater, dreamlike, unreal. Luca Castellano kneels beside the payphone in the back corner of the diner. He is 6'2", broad through the shoulders, built like a man who stopped asking for permission decades ago. His tailored suit costs $15,000 and is now soaked through, clinging to his chest and shoulders. His dark hair, silvered at the temples, is matted flat against his skull. His hands, the hands that sign documents sending men to federal prison, that closed deals worth hundreds of millions, that moved through the shadows of Las Vegas like a god's hands, are trembling. 2 hours. Emma has been gone for 2 hours. His daughter, 6 years old. Taken from her bedroom during the blizzard while he was in meetings downtown, the kind of meetings where men in expensive suits discuss things that make the earth itself seem unsafe. The bedroom door was still locked from the outside. The window sealed shut. No signs of forced entry, which meant someone with keys, someone trusted, someone from inside his own walls. 70 men are searching the city right now. 70 men moving through the snow in black SUVs with their phones pressed to their ears, their weapons at their sides, their faces hard as stone. The Las Vegas police have been called off with a single phone call. The FBI knows better than to interfere. Luca Castellano's daughter is missing, which means the entire underworld is holding its breath. But none of that matters. He dials the number again. His personal security detail answers on the first ring, voice crackling through the line like a prayer unanswered. No sign of her yet, boss. We're expanding the search radius. We've got men at every hospital, every. Keep searching. His voice comes out like venom. Controlled. Lethal. But underneath it is something else. Something raw. Something terrified. He hangs up before they can respond. The door of the diner crashes open. Snow pours in. Wind screams across the checkered floor, and standing in the doorway is a woman barely able to stand. She is soaked through, her clothes clinging to her frame like a second skin. Her left eye is swollen completely shut, the flesh around it purple and yellow and black, bruised so deeply it looks like part of her face has died. Fingerprints are visible on her throat, dark red bruises shaped like hands that wanted her dead, hands that squeezed until she stopped moving, stopped breathing, stopped existing. She is shaking. Hypothermic. Her thin jacket, a worn denim thing that cost maybe $20 when it was new, now torn at the seams, hangs off one shoulder, soaked through. She does not see Luca Castellano. She does not see his men standing against the walls like sculptures made of muscle and rage. She does not see the most powerful man in Nevada on his knees by a payphone, a man who controls $2 billion and a criminal empire that stretches across 3 states. She sees the girl in the back booth. Emma sits alone, her small legs dangling off the plastic seat, her thin dress, pink with little flowers, the same dress her mother bought her before the cancer took her, before the hospital bed and the machines and the moment when everything changed, is rumpled and damp from the snow. She is crying. Shaking. Her small hands are wrapped around a cup of cold hot chocolate that has been sitting there for hours, untouched. No one in the diner has moved toward her. Not Luca's men. Not the waitress frozen behind the counter. Not anyone. The woman moves across the diner like something wounded, like a deer limping on a broken leg, and she peels off her own jacket. It falls away from her shoulders, and the cold hits her immediately. She is wearing a thin uniform underneath, the kind worn by nursing home staff, and underneath that, a thermal undershirt with a hole at the elbow. She wraps her jacket around Emma, and her hands are shaking so badly she can barely manage the zipper. "It's okay," she whispers to the child. "You are safe now. My name is Nora. What is your name?" "Emma." The girl's voice is small and hollow and broken. Are you going to leave me too? Nora's breath catches. She sits in a booth across from the child, though sitting costs her. Everything in her face suggests that moving, breathing, existing causes pain. There are small cuts on her temple, blood dried at her hairline. Her hands are bruised. Her fingernails are broken. I am not going to leave you, Nora says, and there is something absolute in her voice, something that sounds like a vow. I promise you. I am going to sit right here with you all night long, and you are going to be safe. Emma reaches out and takes her hand. The girl's fingers are small and cold, and when they wrap around Nora's palm, Nora's eyes close. For a moment, everything else falls away. Luca watches. He stands slowly, his knees cracking, the sound of it sharp in the sudden silence. He takes one step toward the booth. Then another. His men do not move. They have worked for him for 15 years, some of them for 20, and they have never seen his face look like this. They have never seen him weeping. The woman named Nora does not notice him approach. She is focused entirely on the child, checking her arms for bruises, asking her questions in a soft voice that sounds like it is made of broken things held together by pure will. Have you been hurt? Did anyone touch you? Are you cold? When did you last eat? Luca Castellano, the man who runs the underworld of Las Vegas, stands 2 feet away from a woman bleeding from her temple, a woman in a thermal undershirt with a hole at the elbow, a woman who is whispering comfort to his daughter. His power means nothing. His empire crumbles in this moment. His billions of dollars, his men with their weapons, his network of informants and judges and politicians who answer to him with a single phone call, none of it brought his daughter home. But this woman, this nobody woman, barely able to stand, bleeding from violence that Luca will later learn came from a trafficking ring hunting her through the desert, this woman sat down beside his child and made her feel safe. What is your name? He asks. His voice is so quiet it is almost not there. Nora looks up. She sees the man for the first time. 6'2". Broad shoulders. Suit soaked through with melted snow. Eyes that look like they have seen things that should not exist. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, thin and precise, like it was drawn by someone who knew exactly where to cut. She does not know who he is. Nora Sinclair, she says, and she does not let go of Emma's hand. In this moment, Luca Castellano knows that his life has fundamentally changed. He knows it the way you know when a blade enters your chest. You feel it. You know. You understand that everything before this moment was one thing, and everything after will be another. But what Nora did not realize, as she sat in that back booth with a child who was not hers, shielding her with her own broken body, as she whispered promises that cost her everything, is that the girl in the pink dress with the little flowers belonged to the one man in Nevada with the power to reshape the entire world. The wind screams outside. The snow piles against the windows until the glass becomes opaque, until the diner is sealed off from everything else, until there is only this, a woman and a child and a man whose empire has suddenly become irrelevant. Before we continue, drop a like if this story touches something deep in your chest. Share it with someone who needs to believe in miracles. Subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. Every like, every share, every subscription is what keeps us creating stories like this one. Now let us go back to the beginning. Let us understand how a woman with nothing, a woman with $78 to her name and 3 days until complete ruin, ended up holding the most precious thing in Luca Castellano's world. Let us understand the night that changed everything. 3 days before the diner. 3 days before the snow. 3 days before everything changed. Nora Sinclair's alarm sounds at 5:17 a.m. in the darkness of her Honda Civic, parked behind the Hot Suds laundromat on Las Vegas Boulevard. The alarm is her phone. The screen cracks like a spider web across the corner, a damage she cannot afford to repair. She silences it. For a moment, she does not move. Her breath fogs the windows. The backseat holds 2 folded blankets, a duffel bag with 7 changes of clothes, and a plastic laundry basket containing everything else she owns in the world. On the dashboard, weighted down by a rock, sits a crumpled foreclosure notice. The paper is yellowed from handling, creased along the fold line so many times that the words are barely legible. $22,000. 3 days remaining. Her childhood home in Ohio, the place where her sister Jenna learned to read, where their mother taught them to make pasta on Sunday afternoons before the cancer took her voice, before everything dissolved into medical bills and funeral costs. Nora pulls on her work shoes. The right heel has separated from the sole. She wraps athletic tape around it, the same tape she wrapped around her wrists yesterday, and the day before that, because the blisters have opened into sores. Her feet bleed a little every shift. This is normal now. Everything hurts. She has learned to function through it. The Sunrise Care Home sits on the corner of Flamingo and Maryland Parkway, a 3-story building painted an institutional beige that somehow looks both hopeful and defeated. She clocks in at 5:58 a.m. Her supervisor, a woman named Patricia with gray roots and tired eyes, nods at her without speaking. They have worked together for 14 months. Patricia has never asked her name twice. Room 217 belongs to Mr. Harold Chen, 91 years old, sleeping with his mouth open against the pillow. Nora changes his sheets with a gentleness that contradicts the speed of her movements. She has learned to work quickly without being rough. The old man wakes as she tucks the final corner. He looks at her with confusion, as if she is a stranger who has wandered into his room. "Good morning, Mr. Chen," she says. Her voice is steady. "How did you sleep?" He does not answer. He never answers anymore. But he lets her help him to the bathroom, lets her wash his face, lets her brush his teeth like she is his daughter instead of a woman he will forget by lunch. When she is finished, she finds his breakfast tray on the rolling cart outside his door. Scrambled eggs, hash browns, a piece of wheat toast, a small container of applesauce. He eats 3 bites and pushes the tray away. Nora looks at the remaining food. The eggs are still warm. She steps into the hallway, counts the seconds to make sure no one is watching, and wraps the toast and half the eggs in a napkin. The napkin goes into her cardigan pocket. She has done this every single day for 14 months. No one has ever noticed. By 2 p.m., her feet are screaming. She has walked approximately 8 miles pushing residents in wheelchairs, changing linens in 17 rooms, scrubbing the bathroom tiles on the 2nd floor until her knees are raw. She collects her payment in cash from Patricia, who counts out $284 from an envelope. The shifts overlap sometimes. Some weeks she makes more. Today is not one of those weeks. She drives her Honda 15 minutes across the city to the Venetian Casino, a massive structure of marble and crystal and impossible wealth. The valet parking attendants wear uniforms that cost more than her monthly rent. She parks in the employee lot and changes into her coat check uniform, a black vest and white shirt that hang loose on her frame. She has lost 18 pounds since January. The weight simply fell away, shed like skin she no longer needed. The coat check station sits in the lobby, a marble-floored cathedral of echoing footsteps and rolling luggage and the sound of slot machines pinging somewhere in the distance. The tourists begin arriving at 3 p.m. They wear expensive jackets. They hand the jackets to Nora like she is a machine designed to hold their belongings. A woman in a fur coat checks it at for 15. She does not make eye contact. She does not tip. By 7 p.m., Nora has processed 142 coats. She has been tipped exactly $0. Her feet pulse with a rhythm that matches her heartbeat. The pain has become something she observes from a distance, the way you watch rain through a window. At 8 p.m., during the shift change, a man walks past the coat check station. He moves slowly, deliberately, the way a predator walks when it knows its prey cannot escape. Black suit. Black shoes. A gold chain visible at his throat. He does not check a coat. He does not look at Nora. But she feels his eyes on her the way you feel the sun on your skin, burning and undeniable. His name is Douglas Hale. She does not know this yet. She knows only that something in his presence makes her stomach tighten, makes her breathing shallow. He has been watching her for 14 days. He knows her schedule. He knows she works coat check at the Venetian from 3 to 11 p.m. He knows she works cleaning crews downtown from midnight to 4 a.m. He knows she lives in her car. He knows she is desperate. He knows she is alone. These facts interest him the way a butcher is interested in meat that is already bleeding. The night stretches on. Coat after coat after coat. Her vision blurs a little around the edges. When did she last eat? The eggs from Mr. Chen this morning. The half slice of toast. That was approximately 9 hours ago. She drinks water from the employee fountain. Water fills her stomach without feeding it. This is a trick she has learned. At 10:45 p.m., she clocks out. Her total earnings for the day are $284 plus 0 tips. She counts it in the employee bathroom, standing before a mirror that reflects a face she barely recognizes. Cheekbones like blades. Eyes hollow. Hair pulled back so tightly her scalp aches. She looks like a woman carved from desperation. She drives downtown to the office building, a sleek glass structure that houses law firms and accountants and companies with names she cannot pronounce. She lets herself in through the employee entrance. The night crew consists of her and an older man named Pete who cleans the first 2 floors. She takes the 3rd through 6th. She has 4 hours to finish. The fluorescent lights hum like they are alive. She pushes a mop across tiles that reflect her image back at her, doubling and quadrupling her presence until the entire floor is filled with versions of herself, all of them exhausted, all of them cleaning. At 3:44 a.m., she finishes the final bathroom on the 6th floor. She empties the trash. She washes her hands. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looks like it might break apart if she touched it. She gathers her supplies and heads toward the stairwell, toward the exit, toward the alley where her car is parked and where she can sit in the back seat and sleep for the 3 hours before her next shift begins. The alley is dark. The kind of dark that feels solid, like it has weight. Her footsteps echo off the brick walls on either side, and then there are other footsteps. More than one. She does not turn around. She walks faster. The footsteps match her pace. Her hand finds her car keys in her pocket. The metal is cold against her palm. She is 10 feet from her Honda when a voice stops her. Nora Sinclair. It is not a question. It is a name spoken like a death sentence. She turns. 3 men stand between her and her car. The man in the center wears a black suit that fits his frame like it was tailored specifically to showcase his size, his power, the absolute certainty that he owns this moment. His face is scarred from temple to jawline, a thin white line like a blade drawn across skin. His eyes are empty of everything except intent. Douglas Hale smiles. "You have something I want," he says. His voice is soft, almost conversational. "We can do this easy, or we can do this hard." Nora runs. Her feet pound against the frozen pavement, each step a skid, a slip, a desperate calculation of survival. The blizzard has transformed the alley into a maze of white and shadow, snow swirling so thick she can barely see 3 feet ahead. Her lungs burn with cold. Her breath comes in ragged gasps that freeze the moment they leave her mouth. Behind her, the footsteps do not stop. They grow closer. The man who grabbed her arm has released her, but only because she drove her heel down on his instep with a force born of pure animal panic. Now she runs, her cheap shoes offering no grip on the ice, her body moving on instinct alone. The brick wall rushes toward her before she sees it. One of Hale's men cuts her off from the left, his hand reaching for her collar. She pivots, loses her footing, and slams against the wall with a force that drives the air from her lungs. Her head cracks against the stone. The sound is wet, hollow, like dropping fruit on concrete. Warm blood runs down her temple, mixing with sweat and melted snow. Everything tilts for a moment, the world spinning, and then a second man is there. His hand wraps around her throat. His fingers are thick, calloused, and they squeeze with the casual cruelty of someone who has done this 1,000 times before. Purple bruises bloom instantly where his skin meets hers, the exact shape of his grip forming like a photograph developing in real time. She cannot breathe. The alley narrows. Her vision darkens at the edges. Douglas Hale steps into her line of sight, his scarred face inches from hers. He smiles, and in that smile is the absolute certainty of a man who has never encountered a boundary he could not cross. His voice, when he speaks, is soft as a blade wrapped in silk. You have two choices, Nora. You can come with us now, or we can make this much harder. Either way, you are coming. He lets the words settle. Private plane to Macau leaves at dawn. You will work off what you owe us. And you will never leave. Girls like you, they always try to run. They always come back broken. Or we break them for you. Nora's fingers find his wrist, digging in, searching for the tendons, the pressure points her sister showed her once during a terrible night years ago. Her nails draw blood. The man yelps, his grip loosening just enough. She drives her forehead backward, feels it connect with bone, hears him curse. His hands fall away. She stumbles forward, toward the street, toward light, toward anything that is not this alley. The headlights find her before she sees the truck. A garbage truck, turning the corner onto the street, its engine roaring like something ancient and hungry. The driver slams the brakes. The horn sounds, a blast of sound that splits the night open. Hale's men scatter, diving back into the alley, and Nora runs without thinking, without seeing where she is going. She runs into the blizzard, into the white nothing, into the space between life and disappearing. 30 minutes pass like 30 hours. Her eye swells shut. Her throat screams with every breath. The cold has stopped feeling cold and started feeling like something else, like the absence of feeling itself. Her feet are numb. Her hands are numb. She is running on the memory of her body, on the animal core that does not yet understand that it should surrender. And then she sees it. Neon lights cutting through the storm. The Stardust Diner, alone on the empty highway like a beacon signaling to survivors. She staggers toward it. Her legs barely hold her. She crashes through the door at 3:22 a.m. The warmth hits her like a slap. The fluorescent lights are impossibly bright. Her vision swims. The diner smells like burnt coffee and grease and the ghost of 1,000 meals. A cook stands behind the counter, his back to her, flipping something on the griddle. He does not look up. And then Nora sees her. A girl, no more than 6 years old, sitting alone in a booth near the window. Pink dress, white socks, small patent leather shoes that have never touched a real street. Her face is streaked with tears. She is crying without sound, her small shoulders shaking, her chin trembling. She looks utterly alone. Nora does not think. She has not thought for the last 30 minutes. She crosses the diner, her blood dripping on the black and white checkered floor, leaving a constellation of red dots that mark her path. She collapses into the booth across from the child, her breath still coming in gasps, her body shaking with cold and adrenaline. The girl looks up, her eyes wide with the shock of seeing this stranger, this damaged, bleeding woman, sitting down beside her instead of running past. What is wrong? Nora's voice is barely a whisper. It sounds like something breaking. The girl's lip quivers. I ran away. I heard the men talking. They said Daddy was in danger. They said bad people were coming. I got scared, and I just ran. And then I was lost in the snow, and it was so cold, and I did not know where to go. The words tumble out in the way children's words do, unfiltered, desperate. I came here because it was warm. But now I am scared Daddy cannot find me. I am scared he is looking and I am not there and something bad happened. Nora reaches across the table and takes the girl's hand. Her own hand is bleeding, her fingers shaking, her nails broken. But she holds on. What is your name? Emma. My name is Nora. And I am going to stay right here with you until your daddy finds you. Will you help me do that? Emma nods, and her hand tightens around Nora's. Nora unwraps her jacket from around her own shoulders and drapes it over the child, settling it like a blanket. The girl leans forward, and Nora begins to whisper stories. Stories about princesses and dragons and girls who were brave. Stories she pulls from nowhere, spinning them out of desperation and the particular magic that comes when a child needs you to be strong. The cook brings hot chocolate without being asked. The clock on the wall ticks. The blizzard continues outside, indifferent and relentless. 12 minutes pass. Then 13. Then 15. At 3:34 a.m., headlights flood the diner windows. A black SUV pulls up to the curb so fast the tires screech. The diner door explodes inward. Luca Castellano enters like a man summoning the entire force of winter with him. He is tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair silver at the temples, his frame wrapped in a black cashmere coat that costs more than Nora's car is worth. Snow clings to him like decoration. Behind him, two men in identical suits, their hands positioned at their sides, their faces blank as stone. His eyes scan the diner in one movement. He sees Emma. He sees her wrapped in a stranger's jacket. And then he sees Nora. Time stops. Or maybe it just feels that way. Luca's eyes move across her swollen face, the blood on her temple, the dark bruises forming around her throat in the exact shape of a man's hand. His jaw tightens. Something flickers across his features, something dangerous and cold, before he moves toward the booth. Emma. His voice is like thunder rolled down to human size. Daddy. Emma throws herself at him, her small arms reaching. He catches her, lifts her, holds her against his chest. His eyes close for 1 second. Just one. When they open, they are fixed on Nora. Nora tries to stand. The room tilts. Her knees buckle. Luca catches her before she falls, his hand at her elbow, steady and strong. You are okay. You are safe now. What is your name? Nora. Nora Sinclair. Her voice is a wreck. Everything about her is a wreck. Rocco, bring the car around. We are leaving. The man Luca addressed nods and disappears. The other man, Nino, withdraws to the door but does not leave. His eyes are fixed on his boss with an expression Nora cannot read. Luca keeps his hand on her arm. His grip is gentle, but it is also absolute. You are coming with us. You are injured, and you need medical attention. No. No, I cannot. I am fine. I just need to go. The words sound insane even as she speaks them. She is barely standing. Her eye is swelling shut. She is shaking so hard her teeth are rattling. Where will you go? His voice is calm, but there is something underneath it, something that suggests this is not a question with multiple acceptable answers. Nora has no answer. She looks down and realizes her hand is still gripping Emma's. The girl will not let go. Luca sees the $78 in her other hand. He sees everything, the crumpled foreclosure notice visible in her back pocket, the cheap shoes, the worn coat now abandoned on the child. He sees a woman who has just run through a blizzard and still chose to protect his daughter. His expression shifts, hardens, transforms into something that is no longer quite human. You are coming with us, he says, and this time it is not a suggestion. My doctor will see to your injuries. You will stay at my home until you are well enough to leave. And then we will discuss what comes next. Nora has no strength to argue. She lets him guide her toward the door, toward the black SUV waiting outside, toward a life she cannot yet imagine. Emma is already in Luca's arms, her small face pressed against his shoulder, her fingers tangled in his coat. The girl's eyes find Nora's one last time before they move into the snow. Thank you for staying with me, Emma whispers. I was so scared. Nora's heart breaks in half. The drive through the blizzard feels like traveling through a dream. The SUV climbs, climbing always, toward the hills that overlook the city. Luca sits in the back with Emma, his daughter's head resting on his chest, her breathing already evening out into sleep. He does not speak. But his eyes watch Nora continuously, as if he is trying to solve something written in her bruises, something encoded in the way she trembles. Rocco drives. Nino sits in the front passenger seat, and occasionally he glances back, and his expression suggests he is witnessing something that does not happen in his world. Something unprecedented. Something that breaks rules he has obeyed for 15 years. The estate emerges from the snow like a castle, all pale stone and iron gates, wrought with careful cruelty and absolute protection. The house is waiting. The medical team is waiting. A doctor, 2 nurses in scrubs, equipment that costs more than Nora has earned in her entire life. Luca carries Emma to a bedroom. The medical team surrounds Nora, gently removing her wet clothing, examining her with professional detachment. Concussion. Bruised trachea. Hypothermia, early stage. Contusions consistent with blunt force trauma and manual strangulation. The words wash over her like water. She does not protest. She does not speak. She lets them work because she has no energy left to resist. They put her in a room larger than her car. The bed is soft. The ceiling is high. The windows open onto a vista of Las Vegas twinkling like scattered diamonds in the distance. She sleeps without dreaming. She wakes to sunlight and the smell of lavender soap. Emma sits on the edge of the bed, her pink dress exchanged for soft white pajamas, her feet swinging in the air. She is holding Nora's hand again, and this time her grip is protective, as if she is the one keeping Nora anchored to the world. "You are awake," Emma says. "Daddy said not to wake you, but I wanted to make sure you were still here. I was scared you might leave in the night." Nora's throat is raw. Speaking is agony. But she speaks anyway. "I am still here, Emma." "Good." The girl pats her hand. "Because you are my friend now, and friends do not leave." Luca appears in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee and the particular expression of a man witnessing something sacred. He sets 1 cup on the nightstand and crosses to the window, giving them space. Emma curls up beside Nora, and together they watch the city in the distance, bright and indifferent to the stories unfolding in the hills above it. Emma's drawing falls from Nora's trembling hands and drifts to the marble floor like a prayer no one answered. 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a yellow sun. The crayon lines are imperfect, childish, hopeful in a way that breaks something fundamental inside her chest. She sits on the cold floor of the estate's entrance hall at 3:13 in the morning, her duffel bag zipped and waiting beside her, $320 in crumpled bills folded into her jacket pocket, and she cannot move. The freezing rain hammers against the tall windows. Each drop sounds like an accusation. She had written the letter in the library 2 hours earlier, sitting at a desk made of mahogany that probably cost more than her first car. The cream-colored stationery felt too expensive to touch. Her hands shook so badly that the words blurred across the page like watercolor bleeding into silk. "Dear Luca," the letter began. That was all it took. 2 words and she was crying so hard she had to set the pen down and grip the edge of the desk until her knuckles turned white. She wrote, "You found me in the diner at 3:22 in the morning, bleeding and broken and terrified. You didn't ask questions. You didn't ask what I had done to deserve the bruises on my neck, the fingerprints that wrapped around my throat like a permanent confession. You brought me to Emma. You let me hold her while the storm raged outside. And in that moment, I felt something I have not felt since my sister was alive. I felt like maybe, somehow, I was worth saving." The pen scratched against the paper. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound of her own handwriting felt like the sound of goodbye. But Douglas Hale will not stop. Victoria Ashford sees me as a problem to be solved. I heard what she said in the garden today, the way she smiled while crushing me with words as sharp as broken glass. She told me I am a novelty. A temporary thing. She is right about one thing: I will destroy you if I stay. Your empire, your reputation, Emma's safety, all of it will burn if I remain in your life. I will not let that happen. I will not be the reason you fall. She folded the letter into thirds and left it centered on his desk, where he would find it in the morning. She did not leave a return address because there was no address to leave. She was going to drive east into the desert, to some small town where Douglas Hale's reach could not follow, and she was going to disappear the way she should have disappeared the first night she met Luca Castellano. That thought should have brought relief. Instead, it brought only an unbearable heaviness, as if her bones had turned to lead. Now, sitting on the floor with Emma's drawing in her lap, Nora cannot make her body obey. She cannot stand. She cannot walk to the door. She can only stare at three stick figures holding hands and feel her chest collapse inward like the lid of a coffin being sealed. "You are still awake." The voice comes from above her, deep and solid like an oath sworn in a language she does not speak. Luca stands at the top of the marble staircase, his white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his hair disheveled in a way that suggests he has been running his hands through it for hours. His eyes find the letter in her lap before they find her face, and something shifts in his expression, a hardening, a sharpening, like a blade wrapped in ice. He descends the stairs without rushing. Each step deliberate. Each footfall echoing through the silent house. "You were going to leave," he says. Not a question. Nora cannot speak. Her throat is still raw from the strangulation, and grief has sewn her lips shut besides. Luca reaches her and stands looking down at her with an intensity that burns. "Did you truly believe I would let you go? Did you think I would read this letter and simply wish you well? Nora, look at me." She does. His eyes are dark storms, and she is drowning in them. "You are not running from this. You are not running from me. Not now. Not ever." His voice drops lower, becomes something almost frightening in its certainty. "Do you understand what I am telling you? Hale will come," Nora whispers. "He will come, and he will burn everything. Let him come." Luca kneels in front of her, and the sight of the most powerful man in Las Vegas on his knees breaks something else inside her. He takes the drawing from her hands and sets it aside. "Nora, listen to me. I was 8 years old when my father came home drunk and beat my mother until she could not stand. I was 9 when he died in prison, and I swore that no child of mine would ever know that kind of fear. When I found Emma in that diner, abandoned and crying, I rebuilt my entire life around her protection. I built an empire so that she would never be powerless. And do you know what happened the night you wrapped your jacket around her? You did something I could not. You showed her kindness without asking for anything in return. You treated her like she mattered when everyone else had treated her like she was nothing." He reaches up and touches her face, his thumb tracing the fading bruise on her cheekbone. "You think you will destroy me. You are so certain of your own ruin that you cannot see the truth. The truth is this: you saved her. And I do not release what is mine." Nora's breath catches. "What does that mean?" "It means," Luca says, rising to his feet and pulling out his phone, "that you are about to see what happens when someone decides that a woman under my protection is a problem worth solving." He makes a call. His voice is calm, businesslike, terrifying. "Rocco, Nino, it is time. Bring everyone. The warehouse on Industrial and the Ashford estate. I want it simultaneous. 4:30 in the morning. And get the federal contacts on standby. We are about to give them the largest trafficking case they have seen in a decade. Yes. Both locations. No survivors in terms of freedom. I want them to live long enough to understand what they have done." He ends the call. 12 men in black tactical gear are already moving through the darkness, gathering at staging points across the city. Luca does not stay to watch. Instead, he offers Nora his hand. "Come. You will watch this with me. Not from here. From where you can see the justice." At 4:08 in the morning, while the city sleeps, the warehouse on Industrial Avenue is breached by men who move like ghosts. They flow through doors that were supposed to be locked, upstairs that creak beneath their weight, into the office where Douglas Hale is counting money with the casual confidence of someone who believes himself untouchable. He is not untouchable. Luca enters last, and the sight of him makes Hale's face drain of color. "You cannot touch me," Hale says, but his voice shakes. "I have protection." "I have?" "You have nothing." Luca's voice is quiet. Quiet enough that Hale has to strain to hear it. "You have no protection. You have no allies. Everyone you thought was loyal to you is already talking to federal agents. Everyone you bought is already making deals to save themselves." "Please," Hale says. He is on his knees now, trembling like a cornered animal, his hands up in supplication. "Please, I have money." "I have?" "I do not want your money. I want your life. But not in the way you fear." Luca nods to Rocco, who produces a thick folder filled with documents. These are the names, the locations, the account numbers, the videos, the entire network, every victim you have ever marked, every buyer you have ever supplied, every transaction. And in approximately 30 seconds, the FBI will have all of it. The first sirens wail in the distance. By the time they arrive, Douglas Hale is sitting on the concrete floor, his hands cuffed behind his back, his face a mask of disbelief. The federal agents move efficiently, reading him his rights while cameras flash and video drones capture every moment. Within 6 hours, his warehouse is dismantled. Within 12 hours, 42 locations across 3 states are raided. 40 years in federal prison, no parole, no possibility of ever touching another victim. But the real destruction is happening simultaneously across the city. Victoria Ashford wakes to the sound of her front door being kicked in by federal agents. She tries to run through the back of her mansion, but Luca's people are already there, blocking every exit. They do not touch her. They do not need to. Instead, they hand her a stack of documents, evidence of her financial involvement in the trafficking network, a charity foundation used as a front for money laundering, her personal phone calls to Douglas Hale discussing the disposal of inconvenient witnesses. By sunrise, the photographs are on every news station in the city. Victoria Ashford, in her $1,000 pajamas, being escorted from her home in handcuffs. Her face blotchy with tears and rage. Her assets frozen. Her account seized. The socialite friends who once filled her parties are already issuing statements of distance and condemnation. By nightfall, her sentence is laid out before the judge: criminal conspiracy, money laundering, human trafficking, racketeering. 25 years minimum. Her foundation is dissolved. Her reputation is ash. Nora watches all of this from a penthouse balcony on the 52nd floor, overlooking the city. Luca stands beside her, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Emma sleeps in the room behind them, finally at peace. "It is finished," Luca says. "They are going to prison," Nora says. "Yes. Because of me." Luca turns to face her. "Because of us. Because I decided that no one who touches you would be allowed to remain in this world untouched. Because Emma decided you were her friend, and in my family, we protect our friends." Nora looks at this man who commands empires, who just demolished 2 criminals without ever pulling a trigger, who is standing beside her as if she matters. As if she has always mattered. "I wrote you a letter," she says. "I burned it," Luca replies. "There will be no more letters about leaving. Do you understand? There will be no more running. There is only forward from here." Behind them, the city glitters like scattered diamonds. And in the darkness, 2 souls who were supposed to remain invisible to each other have finally been seen. The sun rose over Las Vegas at 6:15 in the morning, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that Nora Sinclair would never have seen from the back seat of her 2003 Honda Civic. She sat in the library of Luca Castellano's estate, wrapped in a cashmere blanket that cost more than 3 months of her old rent, her fingers tracing the spine of a leather-bound book she could not read. Sleep had abandoned her somewhere around 4 a.m. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed the quarter hour. She counted the chimes like a prayer, like each one might rewind time to the moment before Douglas Hale and Victoria Ashford had ever existed. The library doors opened without a knock. Luca entered like a man returning from war, his white dress shirt stained with something that was not his blood, his tie loosened, his dark eyes carrying the weight of decisions that would echo through the city for years to come. He had aged in the 7 hours since he left her in this room. Not in years, but in the depth of what he had seen, what he had ordered, what he had watched his men execute with the precision of a surgeon and the mercy of a stone. Nora rose without thinking. "It is done," Luca said, his voice like thunder rolling across empty ground. Not a question. A statement of fact. The kind of statement that meant two people would never see daylight again. "They are going to prison," she whispered. "Yes." He moved toward her with the same deliberate pace he used when he walked through rooms full of men who feared him. But his eyes were different now. Softer. Raw in a way that power usually burns away. Douglas Hale attempted to flee across the Nevada border at 4:37 this morning. Rocco and Nino intercepted him 12 miles outside the city limits. He is singing everything to federal agents. Victoria Ashford was arrested at her home at 5:22 a.m. The photographs of her involvement in the trafficking network are on every news station in America. Nora's knees bent without permission. Luca caught her before she fell, his arms steady, one hand pressing against the small of her back the way a man holds something precious enough to break if he is not careful. She breathed into his chest, feeling the rapid thud of his heartbeat, faster than she had ever imagined the heart of Luca Castellano could beat. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for me? I am nobody. I was sleeping in my car with $78. I do not deserve." Luca pulled back just enough to look at her. His scar, the one that ran from his eye to his cheekbone, caught the morning light like a blade catching the sun. "Because you are not nobody, Nora. You never were. You protected my daughter when you had every reason to save yourself. You stayed in that diner with a child you did not know through a blizzard that could have killed you both. You wrote me a letter saying goodbye instead of asking me for help. Do you understand what that means?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "It means you have a heart that the world has tried to crush for 27 years, and it is still beating. It means when you had nothing left, you gave everything. That is not nobody. That is everything." The library doors burst open. Emma ran in, her 7-year-old body moving like liquid light, her dark hair tangled from sleep, her eyes searching for Nora the way a person searches for air after drowning. "Nora! Nora, will you stay forever?" "Papa said maybe, but I want to know if you will stay forever with me and Papa." Nora looked at Luca. He nodded, the smallest movement of his head, but it carried the weight of 1,000 promises. "Yes, baby," Nora said, kneeling down as Emma threw her arms around her neck. "I will stay forever." Rocco appeared in the doorway, his massive frame filling the space like a shadow. He watched his boss with an expression that had no name. In 15 years of working for Luca Castellano, he had seen him order executions, move money that could buy cities, command men like a general surveying a battlefield. But he had never seen him kneel beside a woman and child like he was soothing a lost animal back to life. Over the next 7 days, Nora's life began to shed its old skin like a snake leaving a life it no longer fit. Not because Luca gave her money, though he tried. Not because he bought her clothes or promised her security, though he offered. But because for the first time in 27 years, she could close her eyes at night without seeing faces in the darkness. Without feeling hands that were not there. Without counting the dollars in her pocket and calculating which day she would run out. She visited Jenna in Ohio on the 4th day. Luca sent a car, a black SUV with leather seats and a driver who did not speak but whose eyes carried Luca's instructions to protect this woman as if her life were his own responsibility. Jenna opened the door of the modest apartment, her body thin as paper, her hair grown back in soft waves, her eyes wide with confusion. "Nora? Baby, what? Where did you go? We have been so worried. Why did you not call?" "I called every day," Nora said, stepping into her sister's arms. "You did not answer. I was so sick, and the medical bills, and we got evicted, and the treatment center said I could not afford the next round," and Jenna's voice broke like ice cracking under spring weight. It is paid for, Nora said. All of it. The best cancer center in Las Vegas, the top specialists, the experimental treatment that works. It is done. You are going to get better. Jenna's hand shook. Nora, what did you do? How is this possible? I met someone, Nora said. And I helped his daughter. And he is helping us now. It is a long story, but the ending is that you are going to live, and you are going to come to Las Vegas, and you are going to meet my family. 3 weeks later, Jenna sat at the breakfast table in Luca's estate, watching him braid Emma's hair with the concentration of a man defusing a bomb. His large hands, hands that had signed orders for violence, moved with absolute gentleness through a child's tangles. Emma sat between him and Nora, swinging her legs, eating pancakes drenched in syrup. He looks at you like you hung the moon, Jenna whispered to Nora as they stood at the kitchen counter. Nora turned. Luca was showing Emma how to properly butter her toast, his voice soft and patient, his eyes carrying a warmth that made her chest ache like she was remembering something she had never lived but had always known. I think he does, Nora said. Rocco and Nino stood in the doorway, watching. The taller one, Rocco, nudged his partner with his shoulder. Neither spoke. There were no words for what they were witnessing. The boss was different now. Human. Soft. The kind of man who braids a child's hair on a Tuesday morning like the entire underworld was not waiting for his orders. By the second month, Nora had moved from the guest room into Luca's private quarters. Not through pressure or seduction, but through a series of quiet moments that accumulated into inevitability. Him sitting beside her on the balcony at midnight, their shoulders touching. Her waking from a nightmare and finding him already awake, already waiting. Emma asking if Nora could tuck her into bed, which meant Nora would be there at night, which meant she would be there in the morning. Luca created a position for her at the Castellano Foundation, an organization that had existed on paper for years but now became something real. Nora, a woman who had escaped trafficking, managing the resources that would help 200 other women escape the same nightmare. She worked from an office on the 31st floor with views of the entire city, a view she had once thought belonged only to gods and billionaires. She stood at that window on a Tuesday afternoon, 6 months after the diner, and let the enormity of the transformation wash over her like a wave she had learned to swim in. 6 months ago, she had $78. A crumpled foreclosure notice. A sister dying in a hospital bed. A car that smelled like rust and desperation. Now she had a foundation. A family. A man who had demolished empires to keep her safe. Luca appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her back against his chest the way he had learned to do in these quiet moments. She turned to face him. His scar caught the afternoon light. She reached up and traced it with one finger, the way she had learned to do when she stopped being afraid of touching him. I love you, she said. The words felt impossible, like speaking in a language she had only just learned. I know, he replied. I have known since the night you did not know who I was and you stayed with my daughter anyway. That is when I fell in love with you, Nora. On a floor covered with spilled coffee and broken dreams. 3 weeks later, they returned to the Stardust Diner at 3 in the morning. Not because Nora was running anymore, but because she wanted to. Because miracles deserve to be witnessed twice. The same night Cook was working, his weathered face crinkling with recognition and something like joy. Table 12, he asked. Table 12, Luca confirmed. They sat in the booth where Nora had first wrapped her jacket around Emma, where she had chosen kindness over survival. Now Emma sat between them, 7 years old and alive and safe, coloring in a book with crayons that cost more than Nora's old hourly wage. Luca ordered coffee. Nora ordered pancakes. The blizzard that had raged 6 months ago had cleared, leaving behind a spring night so clear and warm you could hear the silent singing. Through the diner window, the city glittered like it had been waiting this whole time for someone to prove that miracles were not just stories. That one act of courage, made by a woman with nothing, could crack open the world and let light pour through. Nora reached for Luca's hand across the table. Emma looked up from her coloring and smiled. This is what family looks like, she thought. This is what home feels like. And sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places. From a diner in Las Vegas. From a woman who had $78 and refused to stop caring. From a man powerful enough to destroy empires and humble enough to learn how to braid a child's hair. After the rain, the sky clears. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that one act of kindness can change everything, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to this channel, because tomorrow we will bring you another story that proves courage is not the absence of fear. It is love stronger than fear. Drop a comment and tell us which moment hit you hardest. Tell us what you would have done if you were Nora. Tell us what you would have done if you were Luca. Your words matter. They reach people who are sitting alone right now, just like Nora sat alone, and they remind those people that they are not invisible. We wish all of you good health, joyful lives, and days filled with peace and happiness. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We will see you again in the next video.